All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. Now, there was a time when Texas, Michigan, and Nebraska were three of the dominant forces in college football. Each program would consistently win their respective conference while they were also in contention for the national championship. But those dominant days have gone by the wayside as Texas, Michigan, and Nebraska now have become mediocre programs. These schools all failed to win their respective conference titles during the decade of the 2010s. The 2020s have definitely not gotten off to a good start for any of these programs as both Michigan and Nebraska are going to finish with losing records here in 2020. Texas is still 6-3, but they are still looking up at the rest of the big boys in the Big 12 Conference. In the case of Nebraska, they had it so well for so long under head football coach Tom Osborne. And ever since Tom Osborne retired in 1997, nobody has even come close to consistently replicating his success. We saw Nebraska get to the championship game in 2002 under Frank Solich. It's been a downhill decline since then. We saw a revival under Bo Pelini, but it was a situation where the powers that be chased away Bo Pelini because he won, but he simply did not win enough big games there. Right now, it's on the Scott Frost watch as they're looking to see what Scott Frost can do, and it's going to be a process. In the case of Michigan, Jim Harbaugh has failed to deliver. He has, he brought a lot of expectations with him when he came to Ann Arbor several years ago. Michigan has won, but they've simply struggled against the big programs, most notably Ohio State. In the case of Texas, they are still searching for the next Mack Brown. We saw Charlie Strong come in and have problems, and now it's on the watch of Tom Herman. Tom Herman has gotten Texas back to some bowl games. They did win a Sugar Bowl a few years ago under Herman, but you want to see Texas take that next step and get back to being a consistent top 5 and top 10 program. And you just have to ask yourself, you're looking at this and you say, what can be done for each program to get back to where they were before? In the case of Texas, I've said this for the past couple of years, and this even goes back to Mack Brown's final days as the head coach in Austin. It's a situation where for so long, Texas felt and believed that all they had to do was go after any of the top recruits that they wanted within the state of Texas, and they would get them because they are Texas. Those days are no longer around. Why? Because recruiting has always been hot and heavy in the state of Texas, but I think it's even hotter and heavier than ever. You look at it, Texas now has competition from all of their Big 12 counterparts, especially Oklahoma, to get the top recruits from the state of Texas. But then you look at some of the SEC schools, such as Alabama, such as LSU, such as Texas A&M, who will consistently go to Texas and get and go after the top recruits. And of course, in the case of Texas A&M, obviously they're in the state of Texas, no longer in the Big 12 with the Longhorns, but now they're in the SEC under the guidance of Jimbo Fisher. So things have gotten even tougher for them. We've seen Pac-12 schools such as Oregon come down to Texas and recruit in recent years. So Texas no longer has the ability to just simply say, you know what, we're going to go out here and get whomever we want from the state of Texas. No, the landscape has really shifted in that aspect. And for Texas, they got to try to find a way to keep up with it. I mean, it's a situation, if you're looking at Texas right now, there was a time when they would consistently get and put first-round picks in the NFL draft. Not happening right now. This is a program that is long and storied at the running back position. We're not seeing that right now. These are the things and these are the fundamentals that the Longhorns definitely have to find a way to get back to. I do believe that Tom Herman is the guy to get it done. But most importantly, I think the folks in Austin that follow this team need to have a little patience. In the case of Nebraska, Nebraska has never been a program where they were going to go out there and get the 5-star recruits, even back to the days of Tom Osborne. It's a situation where Nebraska always relied on their system and on their tradition. And I think what hurt Nebraska was when they tried to upgrade and get to the 21st century when they brought in Bill Callahan and they wanted to have a more passing conscious offense. Did not work. They hit it right on the nail when they had Bo Pelini and they chased him away. And in chasing Bo Pelini away, they've taken several steps back. And I think it's going to be even tougher now for Nebraska to get back to that success. Why? Because there was a time when Nebraska dominated the Big 8 conference. And the only team that they really had to worry about was Colorado. And then, of course, the teams from the Big 8, joined some of the schools from the Southwestern Conference to form the Big 12. But Nebraska still had their way in that Big 12 North. You look at the Big Ten right now, and it's not set up for Nebraska to dominate. You have Wisconsin and Iowa first and foremost in that Big Ten West. You also have to deal with the likes of Penn State and Michigan and Ohio State coming out of that Big Ten East. So it's going to be even more difficult for Nebraska to dominate in a 14-team conference. And just like it is at Texas, I think the folks that follow this Cornhusker program have to learn some patience. In the case of Michigan, I think it's a little bit different because I know that they're going to finish this year with a losing record. And I know that there are some people who, for the past several years, have wanted Michigan to move on from Harbaugh. I don't think that's the case. Michigan and Harbaugh are set to meet at the end of this season and talk. If they were going to fire him, I think they would have done it already. But I do think that the powers that be in Ann Arbor are going to talk to Harbaugh, and they want him to change some of his philosophies, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and get more modern. Because, when you look at the Michigan offense, Harbaugh is doing the things the way that Bo Schembechler did 40 and 50 years ago when he was a head football coach for the Maize and Blue. The game has changed. The game has evolved. And you look at Harbaugh, he definitely still has the ability to recruit and coach because a lot of his players, he's putting players in the NFL, but they're all on the defensive side of the ball. With Michigan right now, their offense, it's still, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And, Michigan did have a good system going with Lloyd Carr, their former head football coach. They were consistently putting quarterbacks in the NFL. They were consistently putting offensive linemen and wide receivers in the NFL as well, who went on to have success. Not the case right now for Michigan football. We're seeing it more on the defensive side of the ball. And that right there is what is hindering them from going out there and consistently beating the top programs in college football. So I think this is something that is definitely going to be talked about with the powers that be at Michigan in the offseason. But you look at it, it's not helping Michigan's case that they are consistently losing to Ohio State, and it is not helping Michigan's case that Ohio State is now consistently winning the Big Ten, and Ohio State is consistently getting looks for the college football playoff. So definitely patience is going to be the key for Nebraska and Texas. Michigan, they've got to do some retweaking when it comes to recruiting and developing that offense. But you look at it, and the folks at Michigan, the folks at Texas, the folks at Nebraska, in the blink of an eye, they got pushed to the wayside because the landscape of college football has changed. It's speed more than ever. It's recruiting more than ever. And just your name and just your brand alone is not going to be good enough. The kids nowadays don't want to know about what happened at these schools 30 and 40 years ago. They want to know, what can you do for them now? What can you do to get them to the next level? Those are the big things. So I think for Texas, Michigan, and Nebraska, they've definitely got to put the pride aside, not rely on what happened yesteryear. Focus on building a new identity. Focus on your culture, and you want to try to get back to what you were. It's not going to be as easy as it was before, but they definitely have the backing to do it. So we definitely have to sit back and see what happens for these historic football programs. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Want to thank all of the subscribers out there. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you are on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There is also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. Take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.